The Godfather, Citizen Kane, Psycho, Space Odyssey, some of the greatest movies of the past century. Windows into a different time, able to elicit the emotions of viewers decades after their release, all paving the way for the magnus opus of the 90s. Space Jam, am I right or am I right? The movie that had everything! Michael Jordan, baseball, Bugs Bunny, ill-concealed homophobia. The Warner Bros. Logo wasn't yet the main cause of explosive diarrhea. It single-handedly created furries. You can watch this movie today as a literal baby and still enjoy its decades-old idiosyncrasies. It's a nostalgic trip for some and a curious peephole into the past for others. And I wish I could say the same about Mixtape. Nostalgia baiting works. Always.
Wow, dude, Pride Rock!
Life is miserable and sucks, so no matter what, if I dangle happy memories of your childhood in front of your mug, you will not beat Pavlov at this game, alright? I thankfully was vaccinated against this disease since a tender age. My happy memory is the spooky song that plays at the beginning of Medal of Honor. You go and try making happy memories out of that. With that said, baits work for a specific fish. Are you a trout? Here's The Sopranos. Are you a seahorse? Have some Hunchback of Notre Dame. They are aimed at a niche, a product that uses nostalgia to create a world that can immerse people from all walks of life is going the extra mile. You won't see me claiming Stranger Things was a masterpiece, but there's a reason it resonated with such a large audience. The kids playing D&D, the ads, the fashion choices, so many things populate its world that it feels like the author is opening the doors to his brain just so you can peek and observe what their youth was like. Stranger Things, in other words, was able to generate anemoia. Nostalgia for a time you didn't even live. It's not important whether it's truthful or not. The artist is trying to pass their rose-tinted view of their childhood, and if it works, you can feel it. Mixtape instead only works if you are an American suburban white kid. They certainly will get a kick out of it. Nobody else will. There's no anemoia, only nostalgia bait. Now come on, why am I being so drastic? Isn't art supposed to be personal? Don't we always say that not all art is for everyone? True, and it's not my goal here to take that away from the people who enjoy the ride. But the thing that separates nostalgia bait from anemoia is that its one and only tool is references. Remember that song? Remember the slushy machines? Remember Blockbuster? Of course, you will enjoy it if that was your life experience, but keep in mind this puts Mixtape on the same level of goddamn Ready Player One.
Remember King Kong? Remember Ferris Bueller? Remember War Games? And Back to the Future?
Or the Super Mario movie for that matter. Mixtape is a passive experience for depressed millennials whose story doesn't empower the setting and nostalgic vibes it's presenting. And listen, I love nostalgic stories that exist only to validate my childhood memories, but sometimes it's okay not to automatically call them a genre-defining art piece and just say, I really liked it. Especially when the story is that vapid. The plot of Mixtape is pretty straightforward. Girl is about to leave her hometown to chase her dream job, and with the help of her friends, Girl 2 and Boy, she has to find the beer for tonight's party. Yeah, that's the whole story, give or take. Okay, jokes aside, this is fine. When a story is this simple, it's because the main focus is the cast. It's a character-driven plot. That's what coming of age is all about. How are they dealing with the fact they're entering adulthood? What challenges are they facing? What doubts? That's the core of this genre. And I wish there was any of that. You can maybe get one fully fledged tri-dimensional character if you imagine these three as a single human being, because individually they barely have a single defining trait. Girl likes music. That's it. There's generally nothing else that distinguishes her. In a way, it's realistic. We tend to forget how dumb we were in our teenage years and how we would replace our entire personality with whatever we were passionate about at the time. Usually it stops. When it doesn't, you end up making videos about games in your 30s. But what you would expect from a well-crafted script is to see this set-in-stone archetype being challenged. But really, there's no challenge except for the player, who has to deal with the fact that girl is a proper bitch. When her best friend gets grounded on the very last night she will ever see her, her first reaction is not crying for her or being sad. She's pissed because her absence will ruin her mixtape. When Girl 2 also befriends another girl, Girl is once again pissed because she doesn't like this other girl because she's not into music.
Oh, what a soundtrack, huh? All time.
I don't really listen to the music. I just watch it.
I know everything I need to know about you.
All these aspects are barely confronted or a result of screen, since what the game wants to focus on is her gimmick, which is reminding the audience how punk, how much of a rebel, how much of a music geek she is. She doesn't listen to Ricky Martin or Eminem, she listens to dudes who snort coke from groupies' titties, and that's rad. Every chapter is introduced with a song, and she will make sure you appreciate it by giving you, the player, a short review, and it all comes off as cringe rather than endearing. Even the dialogues suffer from this. They usually sound very natural.
Can the camera handle the kind of sauce I'm putting out here?
I said natural, not period appropriate. But they're ruined by her constant need to reference music at all costs. Even when the story tries to reach for some genuine pathos, she has to bring up Dude from Smashing Rockins because that's all she can think about.
You want to protect her, I get it, but as Rush said in their 1982 classic, any escape might help to smooth
When you pair that with the incessant fourth wall breaks, it stops feeling like a dialogue between author and audience and rather a slightly pretentious lesson. I was reminded of one specific scene from Inglourious Basterds where Shoshana, the only survivor of her family from a Nazi raid, plans to burn her movie theater down with the entire Nazi elite inside it, using a nitrate film collection. As an audience member, you might find it strange, so Tarantino interrupts the movie, and the narrator explains to you that this stuff can be used to bomb a country. It felt necessary because trying to pass that information through dialogue could have sounded stilted and unnatural, like having this guy say, "Oh, you mean that film which is incredibly flammable?"
Oh, right, the poison for Cusco, the poison chosen specially to kill Cusco, Cusco's poison. That poison?
Yes! On top of that, it actually makes you more interested. It's a weird change of pace, you find it strange, so your interest is piqued. It works once. Mixtape does it constantly.
What are you doing? I'm listening to Roads by Portishead from their debut album. It's kind of hollow, haunting, long stretches of electric piano, because I honestly don't know.
And thus feels padded out for no good reason. But it kinda needs the padding, because this is a 1.5 hour pleasant, if not cliché, story stretched to 3.5 hours to justify its almost €20 price tag. But why? Cliché doesn't mean bad. On its own 2 feet, it would be an okay animated movie with some great design and art direction backing it up. Why did Mixtape need to be a game? The long-running debate about should video games be fun, should video games be games first and stories second, never made too much sense to me. No, they don't need to be fun. No, win and lose conditions can assume different aspects and enable different approaches to gameplay. Mixtape barely has anything resembling a fail state, and there's no real consistent gameplay, aside for the tedious walks inside bedrooms where you observe random shit. The power is always in the interaction and how meaningful it feels. Movie games like Heavy Rain suck because David Cage can't write a decent plot if his life depended on it. But the choices feel meaningful. You're making them under the assumption of shaping the story the way you want. If you remove even choice, well, things get complicated. You need to make those interactions somehow feel like they have an emotional value. Pulling the trigger on the boss, throwing that master ball at Mewtwo, opening a portal on the moon. Single button presses, yet they are the sum of an entire experience. Mixtape has precisely 2 of these moments, and they're both in the first 10 minutes. That highly memeable tongue-kissing sequence, yeah, it looks disgusting, and it's amazing. I know I'm talking to a bunch of virgin, kissless gamers, but let me tell you, first kiss, it's not what you expect. A true fish-out-of-water experience, despite all the wetness. It's exciting, but uncomfortable in a sense, like you don't know if you're screwing up or some crap, and this sequence manages to evoke that cringy feeling while letting you pull off some Mortal Kombat combos between tongues. It's perfect. And I never want to see it again. The other moment is when you need to give Girl 2 your secret handshake. The game shows the buttons you need to press, and you might think you need to press them in order, but you are free to create your own sequence. It's a tiny, minuscule thing that empowers the idea that this is your secret handshake. Of course, a good game would reincorporate it at the end by asking you to use the secret handshake again, but this time without the button sequence, leading you to probably get it wrong. But Mixtape is not a good game, just a fairly decent one, so we can't ask for that much. But now you think, wait, only 2 interactions in the entire game? No. You misunderstood me. Only 2 good interactions in the entire game. Mixtape has no idea how to be a video game. Every gameplay set piece is a non sequitur random flashback where your actions are not dictated by the plot, nor by the character's current emotional state. There are a few exceptions where it doesn't feel out of place, like the part where you make cars explode by flipping them off. That's okay, girl is angry, so she channels that anger into her Mad Max fantasies, but most of the times they mean nothing. The batting practice is supposed to be a moment of reflection for Girl 2, because Girl 2 is the actually likable protagonist, but the only reason this segment seems to exist is so they can play...
Holy shit!
And you jump and float through this forest because the song playing is called Airwalker. If Girl didn't tell you the title track and you didn't know this song, this entire sequence would feel completely devoid of meaning. This is how 80% of the game is. The music dictates the experience, but the music doesn't have a dialogue with the script. It's disconnected. Sometimes it's just sad. Okay, lights off. I want you to picture this sequence. Girl and boy are saying their goodbyes. The game wants you to hold hands with him until you need to let go, and this entire segment has to be done through player input. Did you picture it? Alright, let me give you my version of it. The game gives you the button prompt to initiate the hand holding, but then, oh shit, the hands are slipping away. You want to keep on holding his hands? I don't know why you would want that, since this guy has the personality of a frozen pizza, but sure, smash that hold button. Did you play the torture scene from Metal Gear Solid 1? That was your training for this moment. Keep smashing! But at some point, you need to let go. No matter how hard you try, you need to stop meshing and say goodbye. The act of leaving the controller mimics the act of moving on with life. I'm no game designer, but I think it's effective. How does Mixtape do this? You keep the hold hands button pressed until the game tells you to let go. Even in the simplest moments, the game still refuses to create an emotional connection between the player and the story through the medium of video games. So once again, let me ask you, why did Mixtape need to be a video game in the first place? Well, it's obvious, because game critics have much lower standards than movie critics.